Happy Tuesday, everyone. I would like to call the Committee on Planning, Infrastructure, and Transportation to order. I would like to welcome Committee Vice Chair Okimoto and committee members Tupola and Wire, and Councilmember Dos Santos Tam will be coming in shortly, but is excused for the time being. Pursuant to Section 92-3.7, the Hawaii Revised Statutes, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology. With the following procedures in effect for the meeting, members of the public may be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda through two ways, remotely and in person in the council chamber. Remote and in-person oral testimony will be allowed when the agenda is taken up. As both English and Hawaiian are official language of the state of Hawaii, pursuant to Article 15, Section 4 of the Hawaii State Constitution and Section 113 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, members of the public may testify in either language. For oral testimonies offered in Olelo, Hawaii, additional time as may be necessary will be allowed for the testifier to provide an English translation of their testimony. Before testifying, each person shall state their name. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. All persons who have registered to testify remotely by video, conference, or phone will be called upon first. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. I will then give persons who have not registered an opportunity to offer testimony. Please utilize the raise hand feature on Zoom to be called upon. For those who are not, for those who are joining us by telephone only, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. I will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. When your phone number is called, please press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. Some friendly reminders and tips. Please video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you are watching the proceedings on Olelo, please mute your television at the time you're called to testify. When the timer on screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. Once all the remote testifiers have testified, I will proceed to in-person testimony in the council chamber. Persons who have not registered persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. HRS Section 92-3.7 requires all votes at remote meetings to be conducted by roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, I will first call for objections, and if there are any, I will call for a roll call vote. For those council members participating from outside of the council chamber, I will ask them that in accordance with HRS Section 92-3.7, that the meeting will automatically recess if we lose audio-visual contact with that member, and we will not be able to reconvene until we re-establish contact. Therefore, I will ask that member to please announce beforehand if they will be voluntarily signing out of the meeting. For written testimonies, the testifier's address, email address, and phone number will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones. I would also like to welcome with us Member Dos Santos Tam. Moving to agenda item number 1, we have Communication D-332 from the Department of Design and Construction, requesting consideration of deed conveying roadway lot 4, deed conveying roadway lot 5-A, grant of drainage easement E and grant of flowage easement E and F for public use in ʻEWA. With us from the Department of Design and Construction, we have Division Chief Sakamoto.
Good morning, Chair Cordero, Vice Chair Okimoto. Aaron Sakamoto with the Department of Design and Construction. We submitted the dedication documents for the ʻEWA Villages Area H. There are 2 roadways and then 2 easements. And we're asking for your approval and acceptance of these documents. And I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions relating to this communications? Division Chief Sakamoto, I was wondering about the, after the easement and then for maintenance, is it still DDC that maintains the roadway and the easement?
Oh, maintenance falls under the Department of Facility Maintenance, DFM.
Oh, okay, understood. And so the roadway itself and the easement will remain with the city then in its entirety?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, understood. Okay, Thank you, and we'll ask if there's any questions when we come back after testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sakamoto. We will now proceed with remote testimony. Yeah, we do. Clerks, do we have any registered remote testifiers?
Yes, Chair, we have one standing by.
Okay, Angela Young.
No, I wasn't trying to testify for this one.
Okay.
There's an
Is there
error.
anyone else online who wishes to testify online? Please use the raise hand feature or press *6 to use the raise hand feature. Seeing none, we will now move on to registered in-person testimony. Do we have any registered in-person testimony? Seeing none. Oh, sorry. Seeing none. Thank you. Seeing none. Is there anyone else in person who wishes to testify? Okay. Seeing none, members, we are back in discussion relating to this communication. Okay. Seeing none, the chair then recommends that the document requesting approval and acceptance of the grant conveying easement for public use in ʻEWA transmitted by Communication D-332 will be reported out for council approval. Any discussion? Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving forward to agenda item number 2. We have Bill 42, 2025. This bill the bill addresses the regulation of taxicabs and taxicab companies. I will now defer to the introducers of the bill. We have our Council Vice Chair Wire as well as Council Member Tupola. Okay, Council Vice Chair Wire.
I'll defer if Councilmember Tupola has any additional comments, but ultimately this was to level the playing field in terms of allowing for similar regulations and for our taxi companies to adjust to the changes in the market, because obviously we want to ensure that out-of-state companies don't have an unfair advantage.
Oh, thank you. Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember Wire, for your explanation. And during the discussion part, I'd like to share a little bit of the history of the work that has started with this bill. And I thank Councilmember Wire for jumping in and want to reassure the committee that there's been years of work going back and forth with the different companies to make sure that we had the best piece of legislation. And so I just wanted to share later with the committee so that we're well aware that many people have been brought into the discussion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next up, we will proceed with remote testimony. Clerks, do you have any registered remote testifiers?
Yes, Chair, we have one standing by.
Okay. Online, we have Ryan Naka.
Aloha, Chair Cordero, Vice Chair Okimoto, council members. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to testify in support of Bill 42. Really, what we're working with right now is, decades of the city regulating our rates when ultimately we're a private business. And this applies to all taxis. And so, we are told how much we can charge as far as the maximum goes, but we're a private business. We shouldn't be told what to charge, just like how, Hawaiian Airlines is not told how much to charge for their fares, or Zippy's isn't told how much to charge for their chili. We ultimately are a private business, and we depend on the free market to tell us how much we can charge. So, thank you so much for this opportunity. We really look forward to being able to be free of some of these rate regulations so that we can actually give our drivers a living wage. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the testifier? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone else online who wishes to testify? Okay, seeing none. Next, we will move to in-person testimony. We do have Max Sword in person to testify.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to let you know that I have a written testimony. I stand on my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, next we have Dale Evans.
Thank you very much for considering this bill. The taxi industry is in crisis. This is worse than World War II, the fuel price increase, and the 2008. The pandemic has been very destructive. The essential services is one of the most difficult to provide because we do it 24 hours island-wide. The reason why the taxi industry is in this situation is because, number one, the TNCs came to Honolulu in 2014, and they have never had their rates controlled. And then the other reason is because the taxi fare setting process is very wrong and unfair. The state government in 1961 authorized the taxis to operate 1 to 8 passenger vehicles, and the city council in about the late 70s passed a bill that requires that all taxi rates have to be set according to the rate, according to the CPI. Is that all I can say?
Members, are there any questions for the testifier? Councilmember Tupola.
Oh, thank you. Could you please continue on the CPA rates and how it's relevant to this discussion?
Okay, thank you. The CPI actually sets one rate for all our vehicles, but instead of the city applying that to the type of vehicles, they have made only one rate for all vehicles. And the CPI takes too long. We waited 10 years after the pandemic. We got a increase, and this is 2 years since then. But the rate increase is only de minimis. So the point is that the council or the rate setting process to me is in violation of HRS 4616.5 and HRS 971. It's urgent that we be free to and independent to set competitive rates so that we can protect our survival and control our own destiny. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Members, any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, thank you very much. Okay, is there anyone else in person who wishes to testify? Oh. Seeing none? Okay, all right. We will now, I forgot to call the director up before I went to testimony. With us from the city administration, first off, we will now close testimony. We will, from the administration, we have with us Director Kim Hashiro from the Department of Customer Services.
Hi, good morning, Chair Cordero and Vice Chair Okimoto and members. Kim Hashiro, Director for the Department of Customer Services. As mentioned, yes, there's been a lot of discussion back and forth on this topic. And the only thing we'd like to highlight for the committee is that this bill is specific to a digital dispatch type of service. And, you know, one thing to consider is that it doesn't affect everyone. So if you don't have a digital dispatch system, it won't apply to you. So one thing to consider and what CSD is recommending is to have a uniform, I guess, non-rate setting legislation that enables all taxi cabs to be treated in the same way. And so that is our only comment. I think the other thing that I'd like to clarify is that what CSD implements regarding the CPI is a ceiling. It is not a set rate. So taxi companies are able to adjust their rates below that ceiling, but it is not a fixed rate.
Thank you for that clarification, Director. Members, are there any questions for the Director? We have Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you, Director. I understand the intent behind this bill. I'm a little concerned about the definitions of digital network and digital dispatch taxi cab company. Digital networks is any online-enabled application, software, website, or system that enables the arrangement of rides with taxi cab drivers. It seems fairly broad. For example, I imagine these days when somebody picks up the phone and calls the phone number for any cab company, like the person behind the phone is using some kind of software. Does that then exempt the ride that's arranged fundamentally via the phone, but through the intermediary software that the dispatcher is using from rate setting regulations. I just want to make sure that, again, I understand what we're trying to do, but I want to make sure that the definitions are crisp and clear and narrow.
So I'm not sure what each individual taxi driver is using to actually book a ride. I understand that if it is a system and they are calling into a system, that it would be considered a digital dispatch type of system, whether it's phone or online or whatever the system is. But I'm just not sure if all companies utilize something like that or not. So if council passes legislation like this with this language and there are taxi companies that don't fall under this criteria, then they may not be able to utilize it, or they would not be able to utilize it, versus very broad language that would allow this regardless of their dispatch model or their technology. And we have taken the position that we're not opposing deregulation of fares and fees. But this specific type of language is just unclear. And so if the committee were to revise the language to not make it specific to a digital dispatch system, that would eliminate the possibility of other taxi companies not being able to participate, or taxi drivers.
Thank you. Members, are there any other questions for the director? Council Vice Chair Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And that's Mahalo, Director. And that's really helpful to know that it doesn't necessarily have to be specific enough to provide parity between TNCs and taxis, but could be broader. So I'm curious, I'm not sure of Chair's inclination, if it passes out either way or not. If it passes out, it'd have to come back to committee. So I wasn't sure if, would the department be open to providing some suggested language?
We can work on that.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, are there any other questions for the director? Okay, I guess, hold on,
Chair, at the appropriate time, I'll make some comments.
Director Hashiro, I have a question relating to, I guess, the oversight that DCSD, has as it relates to the type of vehicles that taxi transports provide. Do we know if there's a difference between the use of taxis for hire for transporting baggage versus people, and if that's something CSD provides oversight over?
We have an inventory of taxi companies that we communicate with, but I haven't seen it broken down between baggage and people. We can inquire. And there are different fees, obviously, set between people and baggage.
I see. Okay. And for the different fees, is that, like you mentioned earlier when you were clarifying that there's just a ceiling, is there a ceiling only for, is the baggage transport taxi a ceiling fare?
So in subchapter 5, rates, fare, baggage, charge, and surcharge, it does have a listing of baggage fees. So it states regular baggage, parcel, or object charge at 75 cents, and then extra large or heavy baggage or parcel or object charge. And this is defined as each piece of baggage, parcel, or object greater than 10 cubic feet in size, exceeding 80 pounds in weight, or exceeding 4 feet in length, or for each surfboard or bicycle. And then there's a $6.38 charge.
Okay, got it. Do you think that the parcels and our baggage and surfboards and whatever it may be should be included still in the exception for the use of fares and baggage set by the CSD or set by all of this?
Well, I think that the point that Charlie's Taxi has made for a number of years, as mentioned, is that they're looking for a business model that does not constrict or restrict their charging of fares, period. And maybe you can ask Dale for clarification, but I believe it's, people, baggage, that's what they're looking for. What CSD is concerned about is that whatever council establishes as policy is consistent amongst all taxi companies and not based on what kind of platform they use for dispatch or, yeah. And part of it is because we're not clear about what is used by each individual. My understanding is there are individual taxi drivers, like one taxi, and we're not sure about what type of system they might use. And so we just don't want to exclude them from this and make it broad enough such that it applies to everyone or every business. And that's what we'll work on as far as language, proposed language.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand, that's true. I do know of a few in Aliamanu, but I was wondering if you could just share then what currently occurs under CSD's purview, like what then are the parameters and limitations relating to fares that you oversee?
So we are required to review the CPI and make a recommendation as far as the ceiling that I mentioned.
Yeah.
And then we have the ability to adjust that ceiling. During COVID or after COVID, the analysis showed that the ceiling should have dropped because of what had happened. But we did not reduce the ceiling. It stayed the same. And, through this review process, we did, as mentioned, increase the ceiling based on the CPI about 2 years ago. And so that is our obligation, is to review that rate and make adjustments as appropriate.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Okay, members, any other questions? Oh, questions? Okay, so I'll go with Councilmember DePola, then Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Hi, good morning, Director. So we've been through a million iterations of this bill. You've met with me many, many times about this. So back in the day, we talked about using the definition pre-arranged taxi cab service. So for everyone's clarification, the reason why we proposed something that said digital platform is that there is a verbiage in the law that states that there needs to be transparency about what rates are being charged. So in order for it to be fair, or the reason why CSD was even part of regulating it, was to make sure that the rates were fair, that it wasn't, out of control. And so when we started off in 2021, I introduced Bill 21 and 22. We used this definition. I'm going to read it so, Director, you can hear it. The provision of transportation by a taxi cab driver to a passenger, beginning when the taxi cab driver accepts the request for a ride through a digital network or software application service controlled by the taxi cab company, continuing while the taxi cab driver transports the requesting passenger. I'm going to stop there. The reason why all this verbiage was used is because the law was still stating that there needed to be some type of call, reservation, and then they could pick up, and then that was allowable. Then Uber and Lyft come along. They have ones where you can just, like, without a reservation, get a car because you just use their mobile app. So the reason why we settled on this suggestion was because when we gave it to OCS and we said, this is what we seek to do, and one of the phrases you said today is pretty key. You said, we don't seek to regulate them. At this point, there are only two major companies and then one-offs, right? One people here and there. So it's the cab and it's taxis, Charlie's. So with those two companies, talking with them about it, and the cab has like the handicap or the handy van contract with the city. So they do a lot of handy van services, not just their taxi services. We discussed what would be fair because we wanted to actually repeal all of it. Because if we're going to make the playing field even for those other transportation companies like Uber and Lyft who have their own internal controls And I think in 2022, the legislature passed Act, I believe it was 57, where they gave more regulations to the TNC companies. We said, would we rather repeal all of it, or would we rather just state that the fares need to be fair, transparent? And it was CSD's position then that we didn't want to repeal. We just wanted to make sure that the rates were fair, transparent. So can you tell me, Director, right now, today, May 28th, 2025, is CSD's position that we should repeal the regulation of the rates?
So I wouldn't use the term repeal. What CSD has stated recently, and I totally understand and acknowledge that our position has changed over the years.
Which is good. You know, I want to thank you, Director, because I think what we've done is we've all learned. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we have. And we do understand, and we're not here to try to control or make it impossible for taxi companies to operate. What we're trying to do is get to a point where every taxi company, regardless of the type of system they use for booking, and I hear what you're saying as far as the previous language, and for us, we're not opposed to deregulation of all fares. And that is not something, we've taken that position, I've shared that with Ryan before. So when this language was proposed where it was specific to digital dispatch, to me, it's more restrictive than where we were at some point in time. So our comment...
Say we take off the digital dispatch and digital network. Just so you know, the reason why we put that definition is because it's referring to page 3, number 6, that says, notwithstanding any provision in this article, any digital dispatch taxi cab company is exempt from rate setting regulations. So there we have it. We're trying to find a way to identify who they are and then say they're exempt from rate setting regulations, which I think you're in favor of. So Director, I think for the committee's time, would it be reasonable for us to work on, all we're trying to do is define it, because prior to this we tried to use the definition of prearranged taxi cabs, and then OCS said no, and you guys were like no, so then now we're using the digital one. Either way, I'm trying to get to a point where we can define who we're talking about and say that they're exempt from the rate setting regulations. Is that something that we can work on together?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Tupola, and thank you, Director, for that commitment. Okay, so Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you. Following up on the question about rate setting, so specifically this bill would exempt any digital taxi cab company from the rate setting regulations in the chapter. Just for clarity, does that also include the fuel surcharge and the other non-per mile rates that are set by CSD?
The fuel charge is part of that same 9-1-13 section. It is subsection B. And so my understanding is, yes, it would apply to that also.
And same thing with the waiting time charge?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Members, any other questions? Okay, one. Okay, members, I know that, once again, it's our first committee. I do know that there have been recommended suggestions by CSD and discussions wanted to be held by Councilmember Tupola. And with that, I do have Councilmember Tupola for further discussion.
Thanks so much, Chair. You've been very gracious to list this. I just want to thank you because, as I said, I introduced the first set of bills in 2021. And I just want to make one mention of what Director did for the industry. In 2022, she held a public hearing. They had public comment, and they allowed for taxi cab companies to pass through the GET tax, which was a big deal because prior to that, it was prohibited. And then she also set a public meeting, and they were able to, as she said, increase the CPI, which I still don't know why the consumer price index is related to the rate setting in this particular industry, but either way, she has been gracious to hear, find ways forward. So for clarification, our back and forth with the lawyers, OCS, in trying to find this is that we need to find a way to define them versus what we have with the Uber and Lyft. And so we're trying to define what these companies are, which previous, like in the, I don't know, 70s, 80s, was always you call, you have a reservation, they come, they say, you're so-and-so, it's this time, I'm here to get you. So when Uber and Lyft came through and no one needed those reservations, there was actually a huge fight about the airport, about who could pick up at the airport, who was allowed. So DOT had to go and change the rules, say who was allowed to go, where they could pick up. As you guys know, now there's designated spaces for it. The taxi cabs have a different designated space because they have to pay fees at the airport to be there. And Uber and Lyft were paying no fees to be there. So there was a way that DOT and the legislature had to work out, okay, how do we make this fair? So that was their fight. Our fight is it's still in our ROH. So it still says that we set the rates, that we set all of the signage requirements, all of the requirements about what the cab should look like, what the signage, even the size of the signage. So to Dale's point, who is the owner of Charlie's Taxi, the last time the rates were changed, and this is kind of similar to what Councilmember Dos Santos and I did about the Humane Society, is like the rates were last changed in 2013. And so when Director went back at it, I think in 2022, it had been 10 years since there had been any change and the companies were suffering. So when COVID hit, taxi cabs went from 2,479 taxi cabs to now we have about 350. So we're talking about a small little industry that's trying to fight to survive. Uber and Lyft can charge for size of vehicle, comfort of vehicle, how many people in the vehicle, and these guys are still set on one rate. So they can't say, hey, I have a limo instead of a small car, it's one rate. So all of that to be said, I am committed to work with Director. We've worked on many things together. I know she's gonna come through on this. Even having a hearing to discuss it is actually a step forward. So thank you, Chair. I think we can get there. If we're able to narrowly define it and make it more clear, really what she's saying and what I'm saying is the same, we need to find some way to get out of the rate setting business so that we're not having to do it every single year and change the rates. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other discussion? Okay, I thank you to the introducers. I do want to ensure that I want to commit to taking in the recommendations from CSD and the introducers. So I will ask Councilmember Tupola to let me know when that's ready. And with that, the chair recommends that I will be postponing Bill 42 2025 for a date and time to be determined. And Councilmember Tupola, Council Vice Chair Wire, just hit me up. Let me know when ready. Okay? I didn't hear you, but Council Vice Chair Wire.
No, I was gonna say, sounds good. I'm sure that CD, once the CD is filed, they'll probably be ready to go.
Oh, understood. Okay. Thank you very much. Members, but there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.